Well, hello and welcome to this week's Paint With Me session. We are painting mums, lots of different kinds. We are going to be painting these really fun ones that I was seeing as I was taking a walk this morning. And I want to do all pink and purple hues this week. There's all sorts of colors, but after all of our fall colors that we've been doing lots of oranges and yellows. And this week I wanted to bring in some of the fall eggplant purples and mauves and fuchsias. So sketch with me, paint with me, do a little bit of splattering. We're going to create this really lovely mums painting together. It's just going to take about actually 20 to 30 minutes. You can do it easily this weekend. We're going to create lots of space because with all the craziness going on in the world, as it seems like there always is, I always like to infuse space and gentleness and beauty into our paintings. And to spend just a little bit of time realizing that life is not completely crazy everywhere, right? All right, let's paint together. Hi everyone, welcome to the creative season. It's November and we're going to paint mums, and we've been painting with so many beautiful golden hues, brown, orange hues. I wanted to bring in some of the purple and magenta and that fuchsia colors that also are part of the fall palette with our mums today. So I've been looking at mums around the city and taking lots of pictures, and I thought this would be so much fun to paint today. And so let's get started. I'm going to encourage you to actually sketch with a pen today. It's going to help guide our painting, and it's going to help also just bring it together. Mums are such funny flowers. I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never been a huge fan, but they're kind of capturing my heart in a new way this season. So now we're gonna paint in a couple different sessions this morning, so feel free, you may want to have a couple of different paintings or pieces of paper out, and I'm just going to show you the colors that we're going to use. I am going to use both Hooker's Green and Sap Green, and yes, I've been cutting this guy away. The great thing about watercolor is you never need to throw it out. If it dries, I just cut it open and take out what I need and keep painting. We're going to be using our dioxazine purple, and I also have here phthalo crimson, or any pink is going to do just fine. You might have a crimson pink or a pink rose. I also have some alizarin crimson, so this is more of a maroon. If you don't have this one, no big deal. You can mix a little bit of the purple and even into the pink and get a similar color. But you'll notice no yellows and no blues today, so we have a very different palette. Now we're going to first start out by sketching. So I've started sketching here, and I'm going to sketch the third mum with you so you can see how I was going about that. What I'm going to point out too is that mums are so interesting because they're just kind of a crazy flower. Let me come in so you can see this better, and I'm actually going to adjust this just a tad bit so you can see a little bit. I just want to go in a little bit closer so you can see my crazy mums. They really are kind of like party flowers. It's almost like they're aware that like their time is short. They're one of the last flowers of the seasons, so it's a big hurrah. You'll notice too with mums, there's really no face like with a pansy or a sunflower, but you kind of start in the middle, and then you just kind of keep adding little guys to it until you kind of get the shape that you want. You'll notice too that there's an umbrella shape with mums. If you're walking out, this is my second one right here. They even though they're crazy individually, they kind of organize themselves so they're this nice umbrella, which I think is really fun too. So a lot of times you might just see like the ends of them, right? So their ends are too a little bit pointed, not like a sunflower, but definitely a little bit of a geometric shape to them. So I'm just going to kind of make some of the ones that are sticking out first. They're not totally lined up, but they're quite that umbrella, right? So again, one that's facing out, I'm going to just start in the middle. We start with some little ones, and then I add in some longer ones, and I add in some more longer ones. And it's just a bit of a crazy flower. And then one of them is over on the side here. And then adding some more pointy edges to this one. You'll notice too, the individual flowers, they're all just kind of doing their own thing. Petals everywhere, really no faces, so to speak. And even their leaves are kind of crazy. The leaves mostly hang out at the bottom. So we'll see a few little leaves, and I'll add just a couple, but mostly the leaves are at the bottom. I'm going to add a few more flowers here on this third one, and a little bit in the middle. But you can see I'm not being super careful about how I create these flowers. I just have that distinguishing characteristic of lots of petals going every which way and almost seeming to overlap each other. Some of them I can just see on the side, so I'll do another one over here, just on the side, and then I'll do the little stem here. And if you want to add in stems, and then you can even add like a little flower here, just make it kind of crazy, because they're just wildflowers. I mean, they're not wildflowers, but they kind of act like they're a little bit wild in their temperament. Okay, so there I've got my third one here. I'm going to go ahead and add some leaves. You'll notice the leaves are almost these three-pronged guys. A little side, a big one, pointy, and then a little side. A little side, a big pointy, and a little side. A little side, a big pointy, and a little side. Okay, so once I have those going, and you could even add in some more stems if you'd like, let's go ahead and add our buckets to them. So I'm going to back out a little bit, because at first I thought, do I just want these like free flowing, like in where I had seen them? I thought, no, I don't. I actually, let me switch this up here. I want them to be in buckets. So what I'm going to do is I just come around each of my three. So this is my first one here, and I'm going to create my little pot. And what I do is I tuck it underneath some of those leaves spilling out, and maybe even some of the flowers spilling out. And that way, isn't that cute? It looks very natural, because that's what flowers do, especially the mums, as they're just a little bit crazy. And so I just bring it around here, making sure with the bottom of your pot, it's not flat, right? It has a little bit of a round coming out over here. And then the other ones, I am just going to make this one a little bit behind it. And moving that out a little bit. And I'm going to play with that in here. I'm going to have to fix a flower. I'll have to make some more flowers stick out. There we go. And I'm not too worried. This pot's going to be a little bit crazier, but that's fine. I'll color that one in darker. And then over here, I'm going to have my third pot. And again, bringing that side down and bringing it over. And this one is going to end up tucking behind a little bit. And that is just fine. Okay, so now we have our pots. Now this is when we're going to start painting, so grab your paints, and then as we take a peek at it now, I just like to go, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to look at all of our colors here, or not our colors yet. If you want to add anything else, like I think, oh, I need another flower right here, feel free to add that in, or if you want to just add some stems in there. But let's go ahead and start painting. So what I'm going to do first too is we're going to first start with the top and then with the bottom. We're going to paint the petals last, because we try to paint everything. It is absolutely going to be really, really messy. So you'll notice here I've got the pink background. Now if you wanted to do like the yellow mums or the orange mums, do a yellow or orange background, so we're all coordinated together. But I'm going to go ahead and continue on with I'm going to use a larger brush and then use some of that pinky background. So I've got some pink, or use some alizarin crimson, it doesn't matter, you can mix them both together. A little bit of purple, I'm just putting a little bit in, right over here, adding more water, and I am going to use my larger brush to start laying this down. You could also just add in some purple. You can do this with a smaller brush, however, it can be a little bit more tedious, just takes a little bit longer, and I want to just have a little bit more even area. With a smaller brush, it's a little bit more likelihood, you probably noticed this too, to get some water staining, right? So I'm going to just move this around. Now I am going to take a little bit of that purple, pink, and I'm going to add just a little bit of a darker area up here. So we'll kind of create an area for the eye to wander around. I'm also going to go all the way around my flowers on this side and then over here as well. And then we're going to end up just letting it dry before we actually paint the flowers. I'm going to add a little bit more darker over here, and then background over here as well. So kind of a romantic look, right? Don't you think? I think it's a bit of a romantic look that we have going on, a fall romance, so to speak, with all of our colors. I'm going to put just a little bit of color in here as well. of maybe some space that we're seeing, and I'm gonna leave that alone. Now over here, you'll notice, let me back that out just a little bit. You'll notice we have a little bit of some darker colors. I can take a little bit of water and just even that out, just move that around a little bit. But I like that. Okay, now at the bottom here, I'm just gonna take the green and a little bit of green. I am going to, I'm gonna move a little bit of sap green. And what I can end up doing later is I may add in some grass, and I'll show you what that looks like on the other painting. But right now I'm gonna just layer in that green as if these pots were just sitting in some grass. And so I'm gonna bring them all the way up to my horizon line 2 of where that pink was. And if you want the horizon line to be lower, just bring more pink down. And I'm gonna leave that pretty much alone. I'm gonna add just a little bit of the hooker's green just to cool it off a tad bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. Because the grass is not swamp green, and really neither are our leaves. So we're gonna kind of create a warmish green glow here. Okay, that's fantastic. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna just let this dry. We're gonna let it dry for just a couple of minutes. We don't have to let it dry for a long time, but if we start painting things now, it's gonna get muddy. So go ahead and play with that. I'll come in just really close here and then let it dry completely. And we're gonna come back and we're gonna paint the rest together. And it's gonna be so fun. Now, one thing I wanna mention too, you'll notice, I'm gonna bring this back in, the space. The tallest flower is not even quite 2/3 high. I wanted to create space in this painting, and when we come back and paint together, I'm gonna tell you why. Okay, we are back and the sun is shining. It just came out from hiding in the clouds and it looks absolutely lovely. So let's start painting. This part is actually gonna be fast. You probably noticed, you probably took some time to sketch. And then that was probably the longest part of this whole thing, because once we start putting the paint down, it is fairly fast. So we're gonna go ahead and start. I'm gonna come in a little bit closer here. And then also I'll talk a little bit about space, which I said I was going to, but first I'm gonna start laying down my color. So I don't want the straight pink because that's just gonna be too bright. So the regular pink, if you can see it on the side there on that tape, you see how pink that is? I can even do it, gosh. I'll do it on the back of this one really quick. You can see how pinky pink that is. It's like spring pink, but we don't want spring pink. We want a fall pink, which means we need to calm it down. So I'm gonna put a little bit of purple in there to make it more of a mauve. You could even put a little bit of red in there. And then I'm gonna add a lot of water. And I'm now gonna start in my center flowers. I'm just gonna start laying down my color. And you'll notice that I just lay it down. I'm not trying to paint them in super perfectly. Like it's not like a coloring book. I'll bring it closer there. And so I just start laying that paint down. And I'm just gonna move it around here. You'll notice that the ink really kind of keeps the form of the flower, because we are wanting this to be at 20-ish minutes or a couple of 10 to 15 minute sessions. The idea that you could spend a little bit of your weekend creating a really lovely painting and actually finishing it, right? Now the space, this is a time of year where, I mean, the whole year is fast. Super easy to feel busy all the time, right? But really being intentional about creating space for quiet, space for rest, space for doing nothing productive, but just being. Okay, I'm gonna pick up some purple now, and I'm going to come over here on this side and start adding in my purple flowers, making sure you can see that, you can. But I wanted to create in this painting that sense of space. So that's why I left all that space up at the top, to remind myself to make space this weekend, for not doing all the running around that, yes, on the weekends we have to do, all the errands, but really incorporating space as well for beauty, for reading if you like to read, for maybe a phone call with someone, or just enjoying the weekend. Again, space for stillness, really moving against that constant busyness and distraction. Because I notice that when I get tired, I often go to distracting activities, social media sometimes, or a game, but nothing that's actually restorative. So going to what's actually relaxing, restorative, quiet. Okay, there's my pink, or the purple, that looks lovely. Now I'm gonna mix the two, or if you have some alizarin crimson, grab some purple and mix that with the alizarin crimson. And you could even add a little bit of pink if you want to. So I'm gonna move that, and you can tell here on my palette, I'll back this up just a bit. So this is the bright red, I'm not touching that. This is a darker, the alizarin crimson. So I've got the purple mixed up and a little bit of pink in there as well. So we're going to create a really nice maroon. Oh, let me come back in a little bit closer so you can see that better. Now make sure you don't lay your hand on top of the painting, right? We don't want to do that. So once again, I am just laying down that paint. I'm not even adding, we're not doing too much of layering colors. We do more of that in the Thankful Home project. If you haven't signed up for that, I encourage you to. The leaf project, the second part of it, we really go into the layering of colors, letting that watercolor dance, and then creating some really beautiful fall leaves. So if you haven't done that or signed up for it, it's free. There's no cost to it. It's just my gift to you, a project I do every year, my way of being thankful for you, and just a wonderful way to celebrate the fall and the beautiful changing of seasons, and again, and Thanksgiving, all the things. So, and I'll have a link for that below. Okay, so I'm gonna just, again, moving around here. We're gonna let that dry. Now, if you want to, you could even add a little bit more purple to it and then just dab around, just to add in some other colors here. You can also bring this over to the purple. And even though these don't have a face, they'll sometimes have different colors. I noticed there was different, of course there's different kinds of mums. There's some that do have a little bit more of a face than the ones we were mimicking our painting after today. I'm going to pick up some more purple. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to do a couple of things. So we've got our color down here. I'm going to take this purple and I'm going to actually come back over here and I'm going to lay down some of my pot. I'm just going to add that purple in, go around my leaves, and lay that color down, letting it go darker in some places. I want that nice contrast. Okay, and that looks good. So I'm just gonna leave that alone there. I don't want it to go into the pot next door to it, so I'm gonna leave that alone for now. I'm gonna pick up some green, and let's go ahead and do our leaves. So if you have your green, I'm gonna pull this back a bit. I've got my sap green here. I've got some hooker's green over there, and I'm actually going to mix them together. The sap green is just a little bit too sappy. It's a little too swampy to be a realistic for our mums, so I want a little bit of the hooker's green. If you have a permanent green, that'll work too. But the hooker green on the contrast can be a little bit too spring green. So that's why I mix them, and then I'm just going to go in here, and I'm going to add in those leaves. And if you add the stems in, I'm going to leave where we just put the pot in, I'm going to leave those for last. But I'm going to come back over here, and again, just moving around. And because this is dry now, I can even go over this area where we had the background and safely lay down some details there, and it's not going to blend together. One of the reasons I wanted to wait is because, as you know, that pink and green turns to brown, and that's never any good. We did not want brown in this particular painting. All right, I'm just going to move around here. I'll come in a little bit more so you can see that. And going in up to my stems. I don't want to create color in every area, but creating that sense of kind of the thickness. These are definitely dense flowers, right? And so while we aren't doing every single flower, just creating that sense of, they're kind of the opposite of the Gerber daisies, where each Gerber daisy stands alone, looking really gorgeous. These are like, it's like a party flower. It's a group of party flowers all hanging out together, all celebrating the fall together. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more in here. And now I'm going to carefully add in my leaves around my purple. If your purple's still a little bit wet, feel free to come back and do this in a little bit. Okay, making sure all my stems, all my flowers have stems here. You could always go back again if you want to make it a little bit darker, a little bit more distinct. You could also come back in and add a little bit more of like the pink if you just thought, I want just a little bit of splatter of pink. In fact, let's do a bit of splattering. I'm going to back out just a little bit, and I'm going to grab, for example, some of that maroon and add the purple. And I'm going to go over here by the purple and just splatter just a little bit, splatter around. I'm going to splatter over here a bit. I'm going to take the purple too, splatter over here. Not a lot, but just a little bit. I'm also going to take that maroon and let's paint another pot. And so I'm going to come back in here this time and I'm going to paint this pot right over here on the far right and moving around, being careful not to touch my leaves because the green and the red, again, green and red, green and pink, will make a brown. So you can always come back and do that after those leaves have dried a little bit. And I'm just going to dab in some more paint over here. You could also use the space in this painting to journal. That would be fun, right? Lots of options here. Now the middle one I am going to do just a very faint, just a faint color. And then I'm going to add some splatters to it, I think. And I may do that later after it dries. You can do some green. So you can see how this one, those splatters came out really, really nicely. Okay, so now we've really gotten the gist, the kind of the whole beautiful painting. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to add a little bit more splattering. I'll do a little bit of splattering here. I'll come back with my green as well and add a little bit of maybe some grass or at least some shadowing. So we have, especially in between the pots, we want to make sure that's darker. You can even add a bit of purple to your green and that'll create a nice shadowing color. Don't be afraid of contrast. That contrast, that shadow, creates that depth. Of course, we don't want it in our pot, so if you notice in your pot it's sinking in there, grab a dry brush or a paper towel and just mop out that color, and then I can always come back in and add it a different, either I'll repaint it, I might even change it to green, I don't know, we'll see. But I can just clean that up really nicely. But that looks really nice. The other thing I might do is with the darker color, I might just go inside here and just add in a little bit of depth and add in some dark green, those shadows, to create that sense of a filling in my pot. Over here a little bit too, a little bit of green splatters around, not too many, but a couple, and we're going to call that done. And we are at, okay, so about 11 minutes of painting. We had about 10-ish minutes of the sketching and the initial painting. Our beautiful, beautiful painting, Mums Celebrating Fall, pulling in those gorgeous pink and purple and mauve. It's really those mauve and fuchsia, purple, eggplant purple colors. So enjoy this and take your time in finishing up with the details. And I will have that link below for you to sign up to paint those leaves with me in the fall Thankful Home class. Until next time, have a beautiful weekend.